we're never going to let anybody emotionally overspend. And quite honestly, that really doesn't happen. That really doesn't happen. People are not trying to overcome their guilt by buying a better funeral.
May I just mention something about that? A lot of folks will ask me, and this is pretty common, if I pre-plan and set sort of details or set my selections out in advance, am I beholden to that? Is that set in stone? And the answer to that is absolutely not.
Hi, I'm Scott Mueller, Mueller Memorial.
And I'm Annie Sauko from Mueller Memorial.
Annie is our pre-plan specialist. And she's got a unique perspective because she's been doing it now for the last year. And I want to ask Annie, what has struck you as the most unique part of what you do? What's the most interesting, not the most interesting, but the most unique thing of what you do?
Well, it's meeting with various families and just all of the different stories that they come with. Every meeting that I have with folks is unique. Everyone has a different story to tell, and it's really a delight for me to meet with those people and hear about their lives and then try to figure out what they want for their end of life celebration. So everyone is unique, and I think that's the chief thing that I enjoy in this position, is just really getting to know everyone that comes in.
How do you balance what somebody wants personally against what you know to be good for the family? So how do you handle that one?
What the family wants, what the individual wants, and maybe what's best for the family, those two can be two completely divergent things. And it's really important, as someone who has now met with many, many families and seen funerals myself personally, is to advise them and just guide them gently along the path of what really works best from what I've seen for families, and maybe the things that don't really work so well. Just really trying to be an advisor and accommodating their personal wishes with the things that I know work best. But certainly every family that comes in has their own basket of what they want, history, things that they've seen at various funerals that they've attended, and they want that, or they definitely don't want that at their funeral. So I'm going to do my best to accommodate that, and certainly at Mueller Memorial and in Tara Green Burial, we do our best to accommodate the family's personal wishes and really make it special for them.
I actually like when people come to us and they tell us the things that they don't want, because that list is usually pretty well defined. The things that they do want, everybody says, well, I want a party. But when I had difficulty with people who would come in, and a lot of times it was men who would say, just put me in a hefty bag, put me in the backyard, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And that's what we say when times are good and we're not really thinking about the whole picture, because it's easy to say that kind of thing, but to not really think about all the family. And I always look at a family and I say, okay, that's fine, but how does that help your grandchildren?
Yes.
And then once you start looking at it from that point of view, you start thinking about, hey, there are two transactions that happen here. And I've always felt very strongly about this. Everybody knows about the financial transactions. We're very transparent about that. You are on the pre-need side, and when the death takes place, we are too. We're very, very clear about what the costs are going to be. So everybody's well aware of that. But very few people are aware of the emotional transaction that is yet to take place, because nobody can really calculate that. You've never had a day without your mom or your dad or your husband or your wife. And that first day that happens, you're on uncertain ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you find that people look to sitting with you and doing this as kind of is it more about, here's what I want, or here's how I want my family to find some relief?
Oh, well, it's both. It's both. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of pre-planning, is that it achieves both of those objectives. We do document what someone wants for their funeral. And then we also take the burden off of the family, because everything has been planned in advance. So we can get as detailed as we want to with these pre-planning meetings, or it can be just very high level, just talking about the form of disposition, just getting the basics down and then leaving it to the family or their people to fill in the blanks. So it really runs the gamut as far as, and I let the family lead, and we determine what they want, and we kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So how long does it take?
An hour and a half or so. Again, it depends on how detailed these families or individuals want to get with their pre-planning meeting. It can take anywhere from 45 minutes if it's just someone that's saying, this is what I want, you take a record of it, or I've had 3-hour meetings before, but in general, I would plan for probably an hour and a half or so.
So I know that generally there are kind of 3 levels of planning. There's number 1 might be just an awareness and just being, they might come to one of our lunch and learns or pizza and pre-plannings or something like that, and they're getting an awareness of it, and they're thinking, okay, this is something that I'm moving towards.
Yep.
2 would be an appointment with you and sitting down and getting a little finer tune on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then 3 would be determining what the prices are, today's prices, including all of the other ancillary costs. We'll get into that in just a minute. And the potential for putting money aside and dedicating that money for the funeral only.
That's right. Yeah.
How do we do that?
Well, there are 3 parts, I think, of the pre-planning meeting. When I think of a pre-planning meeting, the first part is just the information gathering. There are some folks that come in and they have no idea what they want. So it's an opportunity for them to ask me questions, and then there are other folks that know exactly what they want. But that first part is sort of information gathering and determining what they want. The second part then is documenting everything, and that's really important. We take down vital statistics. We've got dates of birth, names, your mother's maiden name, for example, the things that perhaps your survivors wouldn't know at the time of death. All of that is documented and kept on record under lock and key at Mueller Memorial. And then the third part of the pre-planning meeting is the funding. So we give our customers a line-by-line itemized estimate as to what it would cost based on today's prices, and then to complete it, it would be the funding aspect, so they can put funds toward that plan.
So where are the monies put?
So the money is put in a whole life insurance policy. In the state of Minnesota, a funeral home, and really around the country, a funeral home cannot take payment prior to the day of service. Why is that? Well, it's a protection to the consumer. You could move somewhere else and want to have your funeral in Florida, for example. What if we close our doors? No, we certainly have no intention of doing that. But there again, we have a protection to the consumer, where if we're no longer in business, that money is safe and sound in that whole life insurance policy. So then when death does occur, we then at Mueller Memorial file a claim with the insurance company. The benefits come to us at the funeral home, and then we use the proceeds to pay for all of the items that the family has selected. And then if there's any money left over from that, it goes right back to the family.
So the beneficiary on the policy that you take out to do this is engineered to keep those funds guaranteed for the funeral. So the way in which it's done is that the beneficiary is not the individual funeral home like you would with a normal insurance policy where you name a beneficiary. The beneficiary is any funeral home as their interest may appear, because Minnesota is a very high consumer protection state, always has been, so that you've got that chance and the choice. Plus, there's another element that's kind of working around there, and there's been a lot of sales of funeral homes. And when ownership changes, the feel at the funeral home a lot of times changes. So maybe you might want to go someplace else. So this guarantees that portability.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it cannot be touched by the county if you ever applied for medical assistance, which is a very high likelihood of a lot of people.
It is.
So how do we guarantee that that money is guaranteed for the funeral expenses and can't be tapped by the county?
Well, it's called an irrevocable assignment. And when a insurance policy is irrevocably assigned to a funeral home, then it cannot, just as you said, it cannot be touched by the county. And unfortunately, we live our lives and we work hard and we amass an estate, which is great, and we go into retirement, and we have this nice estate, but eventually more times than I think a lot of people realize, folks in their advancing age do outlive their estate. And if you do come into a situation where you have to file for medical assistance, the county will require you to spend down your estate until you have $3,000. You will have to liquidate all of your assets. This, though, an irrevocably assigned funeral policy is untouchable by the county, and it should be. You've worked all of your life to have a good life and enjoy, everything that life has to offer. At the very end of your life, you deserve a dignified funeral. And this is a lovely, lovely way for you to protect those assets and ensure that the funds are there at the time of need so you can get the funeral that you really have always wanted.
I've met with many people who have taken it as far as step 2. And step 2 is they meet with me, we gather all the information, we put the file together. We've got very good details. We've got a price that they know about, and then they never come in and do step 3. And because of that, when the death takes place, now they're on medical assistance. Their estate has been dramatically reduced.
Yes.
Or there may be liens against their house as a result of their long-term care. And the family doesn't have the funds to take care of the funeral that they wanted in the first place.
That's right.
And so this is a good way to do it. Not only are the funds protected, but the growth on the funds. So each one of these policies, there is some growth on it to help offset the effect of inflation. And there are very good reasons to do this. Now, a lot of people might have regular life insurance. And in that case, if they have a whole life policy where there's cash value in that policy, how does the county look at that cash value in the life insurance policy?
Well, that's one of their assets. That's considered an asset. So then
Like cash on the table.
it is exactly that.
Yep.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
And the county, if you're on long-term care and getting medical assistance, they have the right and the duty to say you got a cash head policy in.
That's right.
And so that policy may have a lot of cash accumulation, but has to be cashed in to work for your care. Now, there are ways that we can mitigate that. And so if you have a policy like that, best to get a hold of you.
You bet.
Because in many cases, we can keep that policy in force. And a lot of times there's no premium with that. So why would you want to give that up? So we can keep that policy in force, get the full benefit of the death benefit, and have it be exempt from that calculation.
That's right.
Because that's what you took out the policy for.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about accessibility to you. So if somebody's interested in making prearrangements, how complicated is it?
Oh, it could not be easier. All it involves is just a call to the funeral home, and anyone that answers the phone has access to my calendar, and you can just set up a meeting. I'm available at the funeral home at either of our locations, or if you'd like an in-home meeting, I can do that as well. Yeah, some folks, it's just difficult to get out and about, and so I would be happy to meet in-home with anyone as well.
We call her Pre-Plan Ann. We call her Pre-Plan Ann for that reason. But you know what's great is that Annie has been doing this for a year, but she's actually had a front row seat to this profession for a long time because, in full disclosure, my wife is your mom. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is my stepdad.
And so
It's a family affair, and we're very proud of that too.
Yeah.
It's a family business. It has been since your mom and dad opened it back in 1946, Alan Connie Mueller, and now you've been the owner for many years.
Yep.
And now I get to work there, as does my sister. But in addition to that, we have a wonderful crew of funeral directors, a caring, compassionate. We have the A-team, truly.
I have never worked with a better group of people, because at this point in my career, I really don't care what people buy. I care that they say goodbye.
Of course, yeah.
And having gone through COVID, I've had that reinforced many, many times during that horrible time, that we were robbed of that ability to get together and to express human emotion, and to be able to look at somebody and to be able to tell them how much somebody meant to you. And that's what it's all about. Now, let's talk about some of the differences that Mueller Memorial has, because I'm very, very proud of this. And we've worked on this ever since my dad died in 2007. Now, I worked for my dad for a lot of years. And you would think that at the time of his death, which was expected, And we honestly kind of hoped for it because he was suffering. 2 weeks later, I was just as lost as everybody else. And I thought there's got to be a way. And that's what led me to work with your sister in the first place. She's been with us for 13 years now. And we, and I really mean Taylor, has authored a program called Grief Compass. Tell them what Grief Compass is.
Well, Grief Compass is really an aftercare program that follows the survivors for a year after death. And it's a weekly check-in via email and blog posts that meets those that are going through the grief journey where they are. So it's specifically the messages that are received by these families are specifically tailored to that exact moment, or what we have in science and studies have shown is what folks are typically going through at that time period in their grief journey. So there are check-ins. It's just a way for folks to not feel so alone and so lost. And we have had such wonderful feedback on Grief Compass. Folks will reach out to us and just say, thank you so much for the check-ins. Thanks for not making me feel like I'm alone on this journey. It's really special, and I love that you leaned into it.
Yeah, we've had over 3,800 people go through this, and I'm really proud of it. And so the core element of it is this contact once a week that's specific to where they are in this journey. But another part of it that I'm really proud of is that we have added a toll-free 24-hour counseling line to it, where people, if they, and it happens at the oddest hours. It happens maybe at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, where people just can't sleep, and 4 nights goes by, and you think, okay, I was given this number by the funeral director. Let me just call him up. You can talk to a licensed master's or higher level counselor who is certified in grief therapy, and you can talk to him for as long as you wish, or as short as you want, and as many times as you want, and there's no additional fee. We take care of all of that. That's part of that. And then during the year, we're going to send out a couple of things. During the year, there's a point at which we start talking about the importance of journaling and how that might help you recover from the death of this person. And so we send you a little journal along with some prompts on how to do it. And then at the anniversary of the death, we send you a little gift as well, just to help you deal with that tough day. And I'm very, very proud of that. No other funeral home has that. No other funeral home has ever gone into the complication of assembling all of this. So I'm really proud of that. Another thing I'm proud of is I'm proud of the fact that we understand that we talk about the acute loss period. Now, this isn't so much in Annie's basket, but it's in all the funeral directors. So for the first 14 days after the death, you drop into a period called the acute loss period. And it is the point at which the death takes place and your brain fully realizes that this death is permanent. Loss is a very tough thing to fully comprehend. And I'll give you an example. So if my leg were to be amputated, I could look down at my leg, have visual proof that my leg is not there, and have my brain receive signals that my toes itch.
Yeah, it's those phantom pains. Yeah.
And it's a real thing. And if that's how the brain handles physical loss, think what it does for emotional loss. So we have learned a few things through this acute loss period, and our funeral directors know how to speak that language. And again, navigating you through that period is all about the care that we give for you. And then the third thing that we do is I make very, very careful decisions and considered decisions about how we're going to invest in our buildings and what we're going to do as it relates to how people are going to see, feel, and experience their being at the funeral home. So one of our first big things that we did when we remodeled the funeral home, we put in a bar. And a bar has really transformed
it has
what we do for a visitation or a reception.
Well, I love the story that you tell, and I always share it with my pre-planning families that come in, and I take them on a tour around our facility because I'm so proud of how beautiful it is. And when we get to the bar, and I explain to them that, yeah, we're the first funeral home with a bar, and perhaps still the only one, I don't know. But I tell them about your anecdote, how you say, oftentimes folks are going to a funeral, they're driving to the funeral, and they're looking at each other and they're having that conversation. And the conversation goes something like this. okay, we're going to get in here. We're going to give a hug to the survivor. We're going to drop our card in the box, and then we're out of there.
And then
We are out of there. No, stay, enjoy, relax, tell stories. That's what this is for. A funeral or a celebration of life is a time to pause, stop the world, and just focus on the family, on the person who's passed away, and to be together as a community. And I think what you've done to the building has really facilitated that. It's so comfortable.
Yeah, thank you. And we've done a lot of things to both of our buildings to do that. But every time I make some kind of capital improvement, I kind of look at it through that lens, and I think, okay, how are we going to do this? All right, so let's come back to kind of assembling a complete file, and let's talk about prices, because this is going to cost something. When a family's done with you, they're walking out of there. They've got a clear idea of what they want and how much it's going to cost. Now, there are two sets of charges in what we do. There are the charges for what we do, provide, transportation, services, facilities, all that type of thing. But then there's a second set of charges. What are they?
Yeah, it's we refer to them as the cash advances. So these are third-party items that we can also put into your funeral fund or your overall funeral picture, because a lot of folks come in and they think, well, I just want to know what this is going to cost, because their financial advisor, their estate attorney has sent them into us advising them to get an idea of what their funeral will cost. So then we take an overall umbrella approach to this, where we have our charges at the funeral home, but then also we'll put in there the obituary estimate. Do you want your name to be in the paper? Do you want your obituary to be in the paper? We'll put that in. Flowers, if you want to make sure that there's florals that are at the funeral, we'll put that in there too. Estimate for any catering that would be done, honorariums to church or clergy that preside over the funeral service. So really everything can go in there, even some cemetery fees. If you have cemetery property and you've purchased it in advance, there's oftentimes a cost for opening and closing of the grave. That can be put in there as well. And I think folks really like the fact that they're walking away with an overall picture of what this is going to cost. So I try to discourage folks from trying to piecemeal this together by calling your cemetery, calling your church, and putting the pricing together. I can do that for you.
You'll do it all.
I will.
Yeah. And it's unfair to give people just the price for our services, because we're being very honest, that's our price for our services. But there are additional fees that are going to be part of every funeral.
Right.
And calculating that and making that part of it is really a good thing. So tell me, how do people feel once they're done? Let's say they've gone through all three steps.
Yes.
They've put the money into an insurance policy. What do they feel?
Oh, well, I'm going to give you an example of what just happened a couple of weeks ago. There was a man who had just lost his wife a couple of months ago. So it was very, very, and truly, most of the folks that come in to see me have experienced a loss of some sort recently. So they want to come in, they know how important it is to get those plans together. Anyway, a gentleman came in with his daughter-in-law, not even his son or daughter, but daughter-in-law.
Maybe had a different relationship with her and kind of trusted her to come along.
I think so. I think so. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had her day free, and so it was a 2:00 meeting. They came in together, and they just kind of bounced ideas off of each other. He got it all arranged. We took down all of his statistics and everything, and then he funded it as well. He paid for it in advance or put money toward it. And when all was said and done, she looked at him and she said, "Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you, thank you." And he said, "Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome." And then they, of course, looked at me too, as they're so sweet, and they said, "Thank you for walking us through this." And that is the prevailing sentiment of folks after they're done with this. They stand up and they sort of breathe this sigh of relief and just say, "I am so glad we got that done." And I have to tell you, we really do a lot of laughing in those meetings. It's not dour and sad. We're telling stories and we're sharing. It's very conversational.
Well, what we try and do on either side of the business, either on the pre-planning side or the time at which you need us right now, we try and make it easy. And we know that there's a method to doing that. And on your side of things, it becomes more conversational and more storytelling, and it gets into things about their life and some fun things.
Yeah.
I just met with a family that you talked with probably 5 weeks ago, and the two daughters came in for their mom,
Yep.
and they took care of everything with you. And now one of the daughters and her husband are coming in because now they want to do it, because they were thinking we're only going to do this for mom, but then they realized maybe this is a good thing for us to do.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, Scott, the time to do it is as far in advance as you can. Certainly, we see people in any range of ages, but really, the younger generation that comes in with their parents, they see the value in it and they think, well, let's get this done for ourselves as well. And that's the perfect time to do it because you're in good health. It's not imminent. Death is not imminent. You're not as maybe there aren't the emotions involved in it.
Yep.
So a perfect time, you're clear-headed, you can bounce ideas off of each other, be it a married couple, or bring in your niece or someone, a friend. A lot of time friend groups come in as well. So yeah, I think that's a great time to come in.
And we're, even when the time comes, we're never going to let anybody emotionally overspend. And quite honestly, that really doesn't happen. That really doesn't happen. People are not trying to overcome their guilt by buying a better funeral.
May I just mention something about that? A lot of folks will ask me, and this is pretty common, if I pre-plan and set sort of details or set my selections out in advance, am I beholden to that? Is that set in stone? And the answer to that is absolutely not. No. These plans can change. Perhaps you make a plan when you're 65 and you live another 30 years. Now at the age of 95, your funeral might look a little bit different. Those plans can change. We oftentimes say that the file that we make, it's a fluid document. So we can take it out of the file, make notes on it, and put it back in. So these plans are absolutely can change from the time of documentation to the time of need.
Yeah, so I'm really proud of what we do at the funeral home. I'm really proud of what you do, because planning in advance is really a gift for your family.
It is.
And it makes you feel pretty good. I liken it to doing your taxes. Everybody hates doing their taxes. They put it off as long as they possibly can. And then when they get it done, they think, what a relief. The only problem is you got to have that discussion again a year later.
Yeah.
This is kind of one and done.
It really is.
And I appreciate everything that you do.
Well, I love doing it. I really do. It's a great place to work, and I couldn't be with a better crew.